Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Many call it a blatant attempt at voter suppression. Tonight, State Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey is painting a different picture of the Republican bills that would change how Michigan runs its elections.
Hundreds of life-saving vaccinations that just need arms to go into. But at some clinics, the appointments aren't being made. Coronavirus tops our news at 6 as communities boost their efforts to get people vaccinated. And there are signs the state's COVID surge is slowing a bit. That's good. Let's start with the numbers. Michigan reporting 4,867 new cases, but 108 additional deaths reported over the last 24 hours, including a review of records. Cases appear to be leveling off, though, as the state's 7-day average is now at the lowest number that we've seen in nearly 3 weeks. Ford Field has opened up more vaccine appointments as it has 7,500 extra doses. You can call or register for an appointment online. Detroit is adding more walk-in vaccine clinics and extending hours it has as it tries to get more residents vaccinated. Governor Whitmer's request for more federal help to speed the vaccines has been granted in the form of 200 additional personnel to work the mass clinics at Ford Field, TCF, and DeVos Place over in Grand Rapids. The question tonight is, how badly are they needed? Demand for the vaccine now seems to vary widely from day to day and from one community to the next. Sean Lay is live with that part of the story. And Sean, you saw firsthand today the opposite of the supply and demand problem we had just a few weeks ago.
Kimberly, you're spot on. That is true. But just a little bit ago, Henry Ford, the health system, gave another update saying, yes, that cases are finally starting to slow. However, vaccination rates are also slowing. Late today, Henry Ford doctors saying they are frustrated as this surge now slows. Vaccine rates are also slowing. Henry Ford nurse practitioner Marion King joining the Henry Ford doctors. She was thinking of passing on the vaccine, and then last month she lost her aunt and then her mom to the virus just days apart.
I had a lot of fears. I think it was more so the fear of the unknown. The only memory I have now of my mom is the necklace that I wear with her fingerprint.
Our cameras were inside the Ford Community Center in Dearborn, turned into a mass vaccination clinic. Dearborn had room for 2,000 first dose appointments today. 60 people signed up. There is a slowdown, and it's not just here in Dearborn.
I have been talking with a number of sites around the area, and everyone's experiencing a little bit of a slowdown. So we want to just reiterate that message to the public that we really encourage everyone to get the vaccine.
Dearborn Fire has vaccinated 45,000 people with the population of 100,000, but also offering vaccine to people from Redford, Allen Park, Melvindale, Inkster, Garden City, and Dearborn Heights. Walk-ins are welcome, but as cases surge, there is concern that not enough people are getting shots. Right now, Dearborn is discussing plans for clinics to stay open later for people who can't come during the day, and bringing vaccine out to people in neighborhoods.
There has been talk about at least notifying people, like door to door and things like that. I don't know if we're at that point yet with our resources.
Back here live, we just touched on that very tragic case of Marion King, who lost her aunt last month. A few days later, lost her mom to COVID. Marion was on the fence about the vaccine, but that pushed her to the other side of the fence, and she did get the vaccine. In fact, she also joined the Henry Ford Health System. She's now administering vaccine for Henry Ford. Back to you.
All right, Sean, thank you. If you're looking to get vaccinated, opportunities keep popping up around the metro area. Royals Pharmacy in Ferndale is taking walk-ins of anyone over the age of 18 years old starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. And on Saturday, there's a vaccine clinic at the Dundee Fire Station, but you'll need to call ahead to get a spot. Our digital content manager, Ken Haddad, is posting all the info in a live blog at clickondetroit.com.
We've been closely watching the battle in Lansing over Michigan's election laws. A set of 39 bills moving through the Republican legislature, getting major pushback from Democrats who call the package voter suppression. Rod Maloney live with more on his one-on-one chat with Majority Leader Mike Shirkey. Rod, he vehemently disagrees with that characterization.
Davin, he does indeed, and he says that he has heard from a lot of voters who have expressed concern and confusion over election integrity from 2020. And he says this bill package is designed to make it easier to vote, but tougher to cheat.
And shame on us if we don't address those concerns and address those vulnerabilities so that people can go to the polls next time and have complete confidence that their vote will be counted properly.
Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson holds back nothing, calling this voter suppression and an embarrassment and affront to every citizen. And while there have been no proven cases of fraud in the last election, the leader says we saw a seismic shift in 2020, no reason absentee voting, and drop boxes for those ballots.
Making sure that they're secure and that nobody can play games with them, and that there's being the video surveillance on 24/7 during the election cycle. I have not run into a single person yet who opposes that notion.
He adds voter suppression stems from one thing.
Well, people don't have IDs. Well, time out. Let's solve that problem right now. How many things occur in your life, Rod, on a day-by-day, even hour-by-hour basis where you need an ID? So let's hit the pause button on election reform, and let's solve permanently this notion that people don't have access to an ID. In the 21st century, that should not happen.
Benson repeatedly claims last year's election was the most accessible and secure in our state's history. Shirky's not so sure.
But why on the day we introduced these bills, she was in Washington, D.C., advocating for the federal government to take over states' rights on elections. So if it was so perfect, seems there'd be a little bit of inconsistency there.
Now, the majority leader says, look, legislation is about working with the other side, especially in a shared power situation like we have here in the state of Michigan. And he says that everybody who is standing on the sidelines throwing stones at this legislation should roll up their sleeves and go to work to help him so that all Michiganders can feel that there is election integrity. Back to you.
So what is the next on the leader's agenda here, Rod?
Well, one of the things that he sees on the horizon that's a problem is that the MIOSHA is looking to extend the COVID workplace rules permanently. And he says that's a very bad thing. He's going to fight very hard to prevent that from happening.
All right, Rod.
A police report obtained by Local 4 sheds new light on the DUI arrest of State Representative Jewel Jones. The report from State Police says the Inkster lawmaker allegedly threatened to call Governor Whitmer, saying it would be bad for the responding troopers. Jones was arraigned last week in connection to a crash on I-96 near Fowlerville on April 6th. He faces several charges, including resisting and obstructing police, reckless driving, and drunk driving. Jones is due back in court next week.
Will the Johnson & Johnson vaccine get the green light to resume use in the U.S.? Key meeting happening tomorrow to determine what's next. Dr. Frank McGeorge here to explain how that meeting's going to go, who will involve, and how they'll make their decision. Doc?
Yeah, Devin. So the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, known as ACIP, is going to meet tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, the panel is made up of 15 experts from outside of the CDC with expertise in a wide range of specialties, including vaccinology, immunology, infectious disease, public health, and pediatrics.
At last week's emergency meeting, the advisory committee members wanted more information on the blood clots seen in 6 women who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
They will see data on the new cases that may have come in since the 6 cases that were initially reported. They're also going to review data that we will be providing them on the risk and benefit analysis, the benefits of having a J&J vaccine versus the very, very rare events that we have detected.
That's the key question. Do the benefits of vaccinating millions against COVID-19 outweigh the risk of a 1 in a million severe side effect? Johnson & Johnson is standing by the safety of their vaccine.
We brought the issue to the FDA, to the European regulators' attention. We want to make sure that we're thorough in terms of our analysis to understand what caused some of these issues. I think part of that response will be diagnosis and awareness as well as appropriate treatment.
The European Medicines Agency has already recommended resuming use of the J&J vaccine with an added warning about the risk of blood clots and the best ways to treat them.
In the vast majority of cases, these vaccines are going to prevent death and hospitalization from COVID-19. So we always have to balance the benefits of a vaccine with the potential risks.
Now, the CDC Advisory Committee could recommend lifting the pause in the U.S., in which case they would certainly recommend adding warnings about the risk of blood clots. They could also recommend limiting the use of the vaccine to those over a certain age, as some countries have done already with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Or, frankly, they could choose to extend the pause, although, frankly, that is not expected given the ongoing threat of COVID right now.
Frank, if they do lift the pause, though, you have to wonder if the damage is already done, in terms of public confidence in this vaccine.
Yeah, important point, Devin. And I think for some people, it's absolutely the truth. The good news, though, is we have plenty of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for everyone right here in the U.S. Here's the thing, though. There are certain groups that the J&J shot was really ideal for because it's only one dose and it's easily transported. The question that remains to be seen is really what role it's going to have in the U.S. moving forward.
Vexing question. All right, Frank.
Sheriff's deputies need your help finding a person of interest in a hotel robbery in Monroe County. It happened Tuesday afternoon at the Days Inn and Suites on Welcome Way in Frenchtown Township. Investigators say 2 men entered the hotel. One of them pulled out a gun and demanded money from the safe. Nobody was hurt, but deputies believe the woman on your screen there may have information about the crime. Take a look there. If you recognize her, call the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
We are at the start of a weather warm-up. We sure hope. Ben?
The start. The question is, where's the finish line? It's not the weekend, but this is an improvement. 59 both weekend days, and it's rain, not snow. We'll look at the timing on this and the warmer numbers coming on Friday before. Coming up.
Okay, Ben. Plus, no law can ever bring back the Northville family of 5 killed by a drunk driver while on vacation in 2019. But something big happened today in their honor. That's next.